I'd just like to say welcome to everybody. Thank you very much to Panos Caribbean for organizing this. We just had a little site visit down at the South Negril River. We went to the fishing beach. They were able to see a little bit. The weather has not been wonderful today, but thank you for coming. Thank you to all the stakeholders who are here. I was going to ask if the people from Negril, if you could introduce yourself. I'll start with Jackie right here. Just your name and your connection to Negril.
I'm Jackie Lewis from Jackie's on the Reef. My connection.
I'm Elaine Allen Bradley, and I'm a resident in Negril.
I'm Brad Bradley, and I'm a resident in Negril. This is my lovely wife.
Everybody says.
My name is Reggie Burke. I'm from Barbados. I represent Caribbean Falls and Sunlands.
Here's my take parish coordinator disaster preparedness for the parish of Westmoreland. John Paul from Manchester Parish Council.
Cindy Zellen, I'm a resident of Negril. Diane Bosher, I'm a resident of Negril.
I'm Ken Cooney, I'm also a resident of Negril.
I'm Indy McClellan Lafayette from Panos Caribbean. Trey Williams, from Panos Caribbean.
I'm Ray Hough. I'm going to Sunset, another family member of the European Commerce.
We use the proposed resorts.
A story about fishermen from Ice Cream.
Keisha Spencer from the New Area and Karen Mullins.
And Rico Moreno from Dominican Advertise.
Lisa Jenkins from John Walsh, Germany.
Very glad to take care of the distribution of
We would not have had a Coast American Foundation. John is coming back from the Center for Resource Management and Environmental Studies, UWI Cape Town.
Caribbean Community Climate Change Center.
I'm Mark Richards from the National Works Agency.
My name is Clifford Barlong. I'm from the Meteorological Service.
Good afternoon. I'm Anthony Mackenzie from the National Environment and Planning Agency.
I'm Maurice Fisher from Ireland, Jamaica.
I'm Emma Lewis. I'm a blogger and I'm with Birds Caribbean.
I'm Horace Hyman from Breakwater.
We have a better idea of who we have in the room. Let me tell you a little bit about Panos and why we are here, just to set a bit of context for this meeting. Panos is a regional communication entity that works on providing information for development. That's a lot. But environment is one of the areas that we work on. Now, we also function as a part of the Adaptation Fund NGO network, which means we're totally outside government. And that NGO network is run by German Watch, which Lisa is representing here. Now, we're having a 2-day workshop which establishes Panos as a regional hub for climate change and adaptation issues. And a part of what we are looking at is how Jamaica is implementing adaptation fund projects. A part of the common persons know of the project, first of all. Persons from Negril. Basically everybody, right? And so what we are looking at, we as the Adaptation Fund NGO member, we are working to sort of, what's the right word? Track how the project is being implemented, how inclusive is it? Are they including the voices of poor people, vulnerable groups? Are they doing consultations, talking to people, getting perspectives in to inform how the project progresses? We also share some of the information we get on the ground with the broader network internationally. So it's sort of a middle ground. And we thought it would be useful, based on some of the discussions that we see happening, to have dialogue with stakeholders on the ground, with some of the planning entities, to further look at some of the challenges and opportunities that could come out of what's happening with the project, including touching the issues of the Breakwater. So for this evening, we're really hoping that we can have constructive dialogue where some of the different interests are put on the table with a view of finding something workable. It's a real, very group that we have, and I think it's a great opportunity for our minds to come up with something that's workable. Perhaps I'm very ambitious, but I don't think anything is wrong with that. So I'm just sort of setting the frame for the discussion. Any questions, comments? All right, later on. So I'm gonna ask Julia just to give us a brief overview of the project, where it's at, and then we'll go into having discussions overall.
The project has a very long name. It's actually enhancing the resilience of the agricultural sector and coastal areas to protect livelihoods and improve food security. So we have shortened it and called it the Government of Jamaica, GOJ for short, Adaptation Fund Program. So that is what it's referred to generally. Now the program has 3 components. We have received, as I believe most persons here know, close to $10 million from the Adaptation Fund to do work on these 3 components. Component 1 is the component that is related to Negril, where the proposal is to build breakwater, 2 breakwater structures. Component 2 looks at the agricultural sector, and in that component we're working in 7 parishes looking at what is described as climate smart agriculture and helping farmers to adjust and adapt so as to protect their livelihoods. And component 3 is what we refer to as a capacity building component, because that is the component that deals with the training of the residents in communities, training in disaster risk reduction, in managing the environment so that there can be more sustainability and better stewardship of our natural resources. The project is supposed to run until March 2016. Implementation activities should complete at December 2015. And we are working with a couple of executing entities. So we have as partners the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries with RADA and the National Irrigation Commission. We also have NEPA and the NWA and the Ministry of Tourism and Entertainment working with ODPEM and NEPA to develop a risk atlas with ODPEM and guidelines and standards for coastal restoration with NEPA. So in a nutshell, that's what the 3 components are supposed to be tackling for us. And we have several expected results from those components, because as I said in the name of the program, you hear about improving land and water management, strengthening coastal protection, and building institutional and local capacity for climate change adaptation. So those 3 components form the entirety of the Government of Jamaica Adaptation Fund Program. I don't know if I'm supposed to go to any more details.
I think that's adequate, unless stakeholders
I would be willing to respond to the questions about other aspects, so that I may not have covered.
I think it's because we are off to a bit of a late start, but I think we would want to open to hearing the concerns and looking at how we can, what are the options that we have concerning. Well, I know the breakwater is a key issue. issue right now. So I'd like to open the floor for comments and then we can see how the dialogue goes.
Well, I would like to say something. The Breakwater plan is one possibility. There is another possibility that is not permanent, but will give us time to fix what we consider to be the major problems in Negril, which are environmental abuses of the past, and that program that we believe in is a soft structural solution. It's not breakwaters, which is irreversible. Once you put them out there, and if they don't give you the required results, you're in trouble. And breakwaters, in many cases, in a lot of areas, have not worked. They have ended up causing more damage than solving the problem. So we see beach nourishment, which is a soft solution, as the short-term fix, which will give us time to fix the environmental ills of the river. And there are many. The sewage plant is only a secondary treatment, and it should have been from the initial stages, it should have been tertiary treatment. So what you have now is that the overflow, the sewage is getting into the river, ending up into the bay and affecting our reefs. We have situations where there's a pumping station down by the fishermen's center down there. When the pumps don't work, there's no place for the sewage to go. They pump it right into the river. It gets out into the bay, and the nutrients get on the reef, and they kill the coral. So we see beach nourishment. It is not something that is a permanent fix, but it will give us time, 5 to 10 years, maybe 15 years, while we solve all the other environmental problems. And I'm sure there are other people here who would like to discuss some of those other problems. And we have coming down, two gentlemen from a company called Breakwater. They have just completed a very successful, they're from Holland, very successful beach nourishment program in Breakwater Beach, Florida. And they're coming here to do a presentation to the stakeholders in Negril. And we would love for members of the GOJ and NEPO to be at that meeting. And we have employed the services of a coastal engineer who is now doing a survey to identify offshore the source of the sand that is compatible with the beach sand here on the 7 Mile Beach in Negril. And that's my opening statement, and now I'd like to pass it on to anybody else who would like to add. I'm sure there are a lot of things I could do. But that is, I would say, the majority of the stakeholders here, I would say that is their position. And this is a natural way. And we should do everything in our power to keep it in its natural state. This beach has been here, one I would say, for over 2,000 years. And in that space of time, we've probably had about 200 hurricanes. And the beach has come, and it has gone, but it always comes back. Not entirely. There is beach erosion, but sometimes when you leave nature to do its job, it does a better job than man does. Exactly. So that is.
I think I'm not a technical person, so I'm just putting my 2 cents on the table. I think one of the problems, though, is that if things were going according to normal, then I think perhaps it would be easier to work along this way. But I think the impact of climate change is also one of the areas that is compounding how this is dealt with. Because with the increased hurricanes that are predicted, the more intense hurricane, I'm not sure there is time to go for a soft option. And I'm just putting some things on the table because we are already seeing the impact of the hurricane. So can we afford to wait that is a question to consider. I would also want to, I know that we have somebody from NWA here. I think he's your environmental engineer that perhaps could give some perspectives on the issue of the breakwater, because even when we were at the field visit, that's what was coming out. Persons are saying Negril doesn't have to be a guinea pig for this. We're not sure what some of the impacts are going to be, and we don't have too much, I'm being very honest, too much confidence in the ability to put it in and monitor. So we need to really be addressing these things candidly and with the proper information. So I'm happy that you actually are getting some additional studies. But so I don't know if between NEPA and NWA you also want to
Maybe before we hear from NWA, I think there's another concern that the hurricane point, the climate change point, cuts both ways, because there's real concern about how stable that hard, so-called hard structure would be if Negril was hit by. I know it cuts against the sand nourishment argument as well, but the breakwater is not free from that risk, and we've seen Diane there standing next to a boulder that was washed up in Negril, which is much bigger than her. I mean, much taller than her. Huge great boulders were washed up that just came out from the last hurricane, and there's real concern about that.
Okay,
just to impact on that point.
But you have to project, that's
right. You have put NWA to manage this thing and to actually look at, not construct, but to oversee it and manage it and things. I mean, how are they going to manage things in the sea and they can't manage the roads? Look at the state of our roads. How much confidence can we have in them? The sea that we can't see. What we are seeing now, the roads are terrible. And we cannot go to the bottom of the sea and see. So what a disaster is that going to be?
Maybe can I just say that the breakwaters will not be constructed by the National Works Agency?
But they're overseeing it. So remember
that in the project formulation stage, one of the things that was said about the construction was that there will be a local Negril monitoring committee. You will, if you are so willing, be a part of ensuring that what is to be done is done according to the agreed standards.
That doesn't come true because it might be written on the paper.
Let's listen.
Sorry, it might be written on the paper that Negril stakeholders will have a part in playing to make sure that it's done right. But we will not, because it happens all the time. The things are already in place on the paper, and then they said, oh, Negril people are with it, and we know and we are monitoring it. Well, we are not. We are not engineers.
This will be constructed under a commercial arrangement. How do people like us get involved in that?
So why is the guinea pig?
Hold on, Mary, you had your hand.
I wanted to say something about the construction. I'm not an expert, but in the EIA that was done, testing that was done at University of Delaware in that flume, it showed that the boulders moved, especially at the toe. And they said you have to be very experienced and know what you're doing. They have to be placed in a certain way in order for it not to shift during rough seas and so on. And it's in the EIA, and I don't feel confident that there's anybody here who understands how are they going to get these giant boulders. The outer boulders are between 9 tons to 13 tons each. They're going to use a grapple or a hopper barge. A hopper barge is just going to open and they're just going to drop. How are they going to move them around to place them correctly and lock them in that they don't move? If they move in a 3-foot flume glass thing, you've done it before? It's never been done here. Dr. Mark Richards from NWA said it has never been, no project this size has ever been undertaken in Jamaica. Why are we being used as a guinea pig?
sorry, if I could though, perhaps this is an opportunity for Mark here to respond, to say what, if anything, can be done to perhaps allay the concerns that have been put on the table.
Well, the first thing is, we've heard that breakwaters don't work. And we haven't heard of an example where it hasn't worked. So can somebody please tell me an example where it hasn't worked?
Go back to 1874 in Australia where there was a breakwater built, and in 1940 that harbour ended up closing because all it did was build up silt in there. They had to keep dredging over and over and over till the harbour became useless and the breakwater is just sitting there. There have been huge breakwaters that have broken while they were being built. The one in Portugal is a prime example, and the list goes on. And if you look at the history of the breakwaters, they start building them in this way. It doesn't work, so they shift the methodology and go to this method. And it's hit or miss. It's hit or miss. Why are you going to mess with Negril? Do you know what Negril earns for this country in terms of foreign exchange as a tourist destination? Why do you want to try it here? We did not ask for breakwaters. In fact, the company that NWA used to design the breakwaters had presented a proposal to the Beach Restoration Committee way back in 2005-2006, and they were turned down because their only solution to beach restoration in Negril was using hard structures, and it's not what the community wanted. So why was this plucked from everything else to be used here?
Alright, so 1% of breakwaters provide issues.
You can't say 1%.
Hold on, no. Alright, let's establish some rules, please, people. We're not going to get anywhere if we're not listening to each other. So I think he's on the floor. Let's hear what he has to say, and then we can solve it. Sorry.
Alright, so Holland used a lot of breakwaters, the most studied, the people who need it most. They use a lot. A lot are used all over the world. And the purpose that it's used for has never failed. What has happened over time is people have moved away from what they wanted at the start of installing the breakwaters. So the idea, in Long Bay, initially they wanted a harbor that was calm for ships and things to stay in. Now they have started to think about having more beaches being readily available. So the idea of having breakwaters that reduce wave action, which they want in the harbor, is now redundant. So they have to start considering new ideas for the new economic thrust that people are going. In many cases, breakwaters have served the purpose that they have designed for, that they were designed for. And I'm going to say, in 99% of the cases, they have served the purpose that they have designed for. Now, in terms of placing boulders in Jamaica, it's placing boulders, and there are techniques and there are methods of doing this that are internationally acceptable. Now, if we are going into a contract with somebody to install this breakwater, they will have to go according to the specs that we have given them. And for any contract that you are entering into, a contractor is given his work specifications. And the breakwaters, we have done the modeling in the lab. And as you have seen from the lab test, we saw movement of some of the boulders. And we realized that if the boulders aren't connected on all sides, 4 orientations have to be touched by other boulders for the stability. In designing anything in engineering, there is a failure criteria. A criteria that says if this happens, the structure has failed. It is supposed to be a structure to reduce the energy of waves coming into the harbor. The only way that structure can fail is if a significant number of boulders actually fall out of position in this boulder, and it cannot now reduce the energy of the waves coming in by the factor that we have designed it for. And that number is set at a very conservative 2, meaning a significant catastrophe has come for it to fail. And what you saw, what we saw in the EIA is one rock moving out of 300. And we have now, based on that study, improved the design to reduce the amount of rocks that will move. The engineers design. We have hired a consultant to do all the engineering works. We are just managing the process. So he comes, he tells us, I've done my calculations and this is what it says. We have engineers in-house who will run it through programs and they will say, this is feasible, this is reasonable. And so we say, okay, go right ahead. Now we're at the stage of trying to get contractors to do this work. We have developed the specifications, very rigorous environmental specifications, very rigorous engineering specifications, and all it needs is the management and monitoring of the construction process.
Who is monitoring it for NEPA?
For NEPA?
Yes.
NEPA is hiring an engineering firm to do the monitoring.
Yeah, I'm asking who that was.
Well, it's still in training. To do what?
So I'm going to take from day one to ensure that it's okay.
To ensure what is okay.
That the design is okay, that the things are okay. I can't look at the idea and look at
we have engineers actually working with the engineers from NWA as well. And so that process is in training.
You had a tender out for it. I saw the tender.
Yes, exactly. Right. So it's in training. But could I just pick up a little bit on a point that Mr. raised? I'm just speaking generally in the context of NEPA. Yes, the reality is that the Negril beach has been affected like a number of beaches along the south coast of Jamaica. But in recent times, say in the past 15 years, by hurricanes. And I should make the point that NEPA has monitoring data on this beach going back to 1988 when we worked in the initial stage with Mr. Grizzle. He was very involved at that time. So we have continuous beach profile data on the beach in Negril back to 1988. And so we've been monitoring. But since Hurricane Mitch in 1998, if you can recall, and since Hurricane Mitch, which was a late season hurricane, and then Hurricane Michelle in 2001, then followed by Hurricane Wilma, then we had Dean, and we had Paloma. All of these late season hurricanes in most instances affected the beaches along the south coast of Jamaica. So starting in Morant Bay, Roselle, Palisados, Helsha Bay, Portland, Jackson Bay, Black River, and they get a pond, Negril. Right? So it's not that situation that's only affecting Negril. Right? Now the NWA, they've done work along the Palisados, which was significant. They've worked in Roselle, and probably better to explain. Black River, they've issued an alligator pond that we need to deal with. In Jackson Bay, in Helsha Bay, Negril, of course, has been affected over the last 15 years. It's significant, the data shows it, right? And at the point that Mr. Easter made, that the beach erodes and returns naturally. However, there is probably a net decrease. Right? And I used to be involved in monitoring the beach, so I can really without going out on the beach, tell you the profile on the beach, because I've gotten so used to it. I can tell you which month the beach is going to accrete and which month the beach is going to be good, because we have the data, right? And it's a yearly cyclical thing, except that it's impacted by these hurricanes. Right? Now, but the bottom line is that there's some amount of net erosion, and the decision was made to take an integrated approach, and I go back again to the point that Mr. Easter raised, because the manifestation of the erosion there, apart from environmental issues that are associated over the last 10 years with the hurricane, but there are environmental issues that you have to take and to address within the watershed of Negril. Right? The issue of the treatment of sewage effluent. Presently, NEPA has 3 officers on the ground, and perhaps the hoteliers would have seen them, were wanting to ensure, because we're picking up, and trying to talk that bit long, but just quickly get about the question of phosphates. We're picking up some high phosphates in the bay, and in Negril, and then coming out of the Southern Negril River. I mean, it could be that some of the hotels are not connected to the system, and so the detergents from the wash water is getting in. So we have had people going along the stretch trying to ensure that all the hotels, all the facilities are actually connected to the system.
Yeah.
No, I could go on, but I'm taking a long time.
I'm not so sure because we really want to
Right.
how we address.
Right.
But so what I was saying is we can't get away from the fact that changes are happening, and as from Panos said, the natural regeneration of the reef after hurricanes would have protected the beaches back then. Now, with so many hurricanes, 6, 8, 10 in the last 12 years, every 2 years there's a significant impact. The regeneration hasn't kept abreast with the level of protection needed. And what we have decided to do with in Negril is based on the prescription from the study requested by the Coral Society, which is Mr. Smith-Warner had made a number of suggestions. And we are working on the premise of the reef extension, which was suggested by that report.
But it was not the preferred method.
The preferred method from that report was nearshore breakwaters with nourishment.
Alright, can we hold this 1 minute? Just we have this gentleman who's been waiting forever to make some point. I'm going to make one myself and then we can continue.
I'd just like to say that some of the figures that we hear here don't make any sense to me. I am over 70 years old. I talked with my grandfather and my father before me, and when I was a boy, my father used to show me some trees out in the beach there. That's where land used to be at one time. And to say over the last few years, the erosion has been speeded up, not true. What has happened over the last few years with the hurricane? It moved the sand up and down, and over the period we'll lose some of it. But it has not increased over the period of time. I can tell you that. I live here. Okay? And one of the things that bother me is when these new things are coming on, we talk about climate change and all sorts of things, and you can't fight nature. You can try as much as you can, but you can probably do something to prevent its advance for a while. And then, if you don't do it right, like this that is proposed here, one thing I don't understand is two little breakwaters out in the beach, and why was those places chosen when the northern end of the beach is more protected than the south? And the protection is going to be at the north, on point. To me, that looks like a band-aid covering over a big problem. I'm not too smart, but that's what it seems to be, right? And all this discussion that we have here, one of the things that bothers me is that we might be looking at the commercial side of this thing, which is good, but people live here. Our lives depend upon all this. And when this thing is put in and it doesn't work, we still have to live here. Every day you see people on TV complaining about water and broke away this, and because of new development, and the new development has created certain problems, and they live there. This is our lives. When this thing is done and the people who are gone, we have to live with it. And when this was being done, they said it was stakeholders meeting, so they say. I am one of the leading members of this community, and I've never been to one of these stakeholder meetings.
Well, you're not invited.
Thank you. One time they said there's a list, and when the list was examined, 3 people on the list that we know who are president. It's a fact. And we have continually been treated like second-class citizens when the important thing is to be done in our community. We're left behind, and all the plans are made. This is not going to happen. Why can't the people who live here, we wouldn't have to have all this meeting if it was done before, you know. If we had these meetings before, why have it after? When all the plans are made, and we can't stop now because look all the money we spend and all this going to do, so we can't stop now. I know the Jamaican country. I know how it works. When everything is put in place, you can't stop us now, look how we've done. Why not consult first? And let me have a say in it, and then we work it out. When you let go the horse, let us talk about it.
But it's two things. Let me just add a little bit of what I know from what we've observed on the project. This is being funded by the Adaptation Fund, as you know. And part of what the fund requires was consultation.
Was it done?
It was done, but it...
On what scale?
Well, there are some questions that still need to be answered, but there was some level of...
I don't think that's so, was it effectively done?
These are some of the questions still to be answered. Nonetheless, there was some consultation.
I want continuity.
As a part of, but no, I'm just trying to set the context in terms of that being done, the proposal being submitted, and I think the question was asked, why was not a softer option chosen? And I think the context of the Adaptation Fund was looking for hard solutions to the climate impact. And so to my understanding, based on the research that was done, this seemed to be a strong option to go and get funding for. So that's part of the context. I'm not saying the consultation was adequate or whatever, but yeah.
One of the things that make us uncomfortable is experience, things being done. We have a sewage treatment plant in Negril as a prime example. The community here go to the government for 5 years. We want a sewage system. Oh no, you can't. Negril is so ambitious. And we never stop till we get the sewage system in place. When they want to do it, they decided to put it in the morass, said that is not the best place for it. They insisted it's going to go there. We said, okay, if it's going to go there, the ponds want to be lined in. Never know. And I sat on the wastewater board, so they can't tell me nothing. From it go up there till now, it has not worked properly. And the people who live on the bank there will testify, we don't want it to go. Else somebody we don't want to talk. Right? We have to be holding it back. Because that is a disaster in Negril already, and we are afraid of the second one, because we live here. That's what, because of past experience, what we have seen, and there's no listening to the people of Negril, every development that has taken place in Negril. The citizens here, through the Chamber of Commerce, have been involved in every single one. Look at our record, and here's one that will come up. Why can't you listen to us now? Look at our track record and see if you can listen to us now. We have been here, it's our lives that we're talking about, our livelihood. And if it doesn't work and you're gone, we have to carry it.
So what would that listening look like then?
Let us sit down and say, don't impose, this is what's going to be done. Let us have a dialogue, and however difficult it might be, we are not being confrontational. That's not what we want. We want help, but we want the right help. Okay? And we mustn't make money be the factor. Right? We want the lives of people, and Jamaica will benefit. And what this thing is going to do down in the center of the town for the next 12 months is unbelievable. And Mr. Phillips, who's looking for money, and I think I have the figures, the amount of money that Negril provides for the coffers of the government. So that's going to greatly diminish for 3 or 4 or 5 years. At a time like this, when they want more, they're going to be getting less. Because the whole of that town is going to get disaster for this time. We asked in one of our meetings that we had, why couldn't this area be done by the south out of the town? We'll give a consideration to it. That's the last year of it. If it can't work, why not tell us why it can't work? Because all the engineers put in place a road in a particular direction. And that's what we've had in the past, and we're here again.
Hold on, but I'm hearing some options on this. Part of what I'm hearing is the need for probably more more information, because there's a lack of confidence in NWA and that administration. Is it then that
I'm not sure it's an issue about more information.
No, what I'm saying
is the point is we weren't consulted about it. And if you want to just do a straw poll in this room right now with the Negril residents, the question would be something like, put your hand up if you heard about this more than say two months ago. And these people, we all live in Negril. We all live in Negril. And if you ask that question, I think you will get a very small show.
No, I understand that.
And I just want to reinforce this other point. This point about I don't want to take anything away from the concerns people have got about this hard structure, but I also want to just address the evil of the enabling works that this project will rely on. And I'm so glad that all of you guys have had a chance to go into the town centre today, where this will be taking place, where a section of the coastline will be dumped up and changed forever. And just the chaos that's going to create, and what is going to be left behind. There's going to be a piece of land, and who knows what condition it will be left to us. And we still have to live in here, in Negril. There'll be a bit of dumped up land, and who knows what condition that land will be given back to the people of Negril. And two, what will happen to it the minute the contractors get off.
I hear you. Go ahead, Doctor.
I wanted to share the approach that we took in Barbados as an example of how it was done differently. Because we have breakwaters, we have boardwalks, and all of it has been done in the same context of protection. The current discussion is around climate change, but as a small island depending on tourism, obviously we wanted protection. And we started more than a decade ago, and we started by doing an integrated coastal zone management plan. We studied the entire coastline and made plans for what needed to be done in various locations to protect them. And tourism wasn't the only driver, because obviously you had the housing, residential areas, you had agriculture, you had government installations, schools, whatever. So it was not just driven by tourism. And having developed the integrated coastal plan, meaning that we didn't just model a piece, we looked at the entire coastline, we had a sense of what action could be taken without impacting negatively on another aspect. So we have successful breakwaters, we do, okay, that have been there for some time. And we're currently in another phase. We've had a number of phases of this project. We've done it successfully through loans to the Inter-American Development Bank. And we just had a successful boardwalk project on the south coast and the west coast, and we're pushing further northwest now with another one in the Old Town area. The dialogue was held as well, in the sense that all of the people who were along the coastline were consulted. And in some instances, people did not like what was proposed. So I'll give you an example. Some property owners on the coast did not like the idea of a boardwalk. They figured it was going to be really bringing problems for them. The decision was made actually on the South Coast boardwalk not to push as far as they wanted to, because there was so much pushback. And they stopped shorter than they wanted to. It's been a raving success, and now those property owners are wishing they hadn't, okay? But the reason why I'm sharing this is that I have a couple of concerns, and I've been very conflicted about opening my mouth because I'm obviously not at home in my own country. But then again, when has that ever stopped me? I'm concerned when a statement is made about the funder wanted hard solutions. The reason why I gave this example is because I said we started by studying our coastline and determining what the best options were. I see nods. That's not because I'm saying that your beach nourishment is a good plan. I don't know that. I'm simply saying, so I'm not taking sides here. I'm simply saying that a funder should not dictate what your options are. it should be that you have a scientifically done approach, and I may have heard incorrectly, and that's probably not what happened. Okay, fine. But the point is that if it has been mathematically and physically modeled, in other words, if it's been modeled on the computer and it has been modeled, or if we're also modeled at the University of Delaware, that's where the most effective equipment is. We have been using those same facilities, reports from very similar engineers over the years, and we have had very successful projects. Our coastal zone management unit at home has been very, very effective in their monitoring and maintenance of those structures. We've got revetments, breakwaters, a number of different ones along the coast. We haven't had a hurricane like what you've had here, obviously, so we haven't been put to the test that you've been put to repeatedly. So I will concede that point. And I sincerely hope that they will stand the test of a hurricane when we finally get hit by a hurricane. Well, it's, yeah, okay, if, when, whatever. But the point, the couple of points I want to leave you with is, it should be consistently scientifically modeled to determine what needs to be done. And then the solutions need to be put in place. And these are not cheap solutions. They're extremely expensive. This is a $10 million project. This is a very small project. The current project that we have going on, you know the difference in size between Barbados and Jamaica. I don't have to tell anybody what the difference in size is. We will fit in Jamaica how many times? The current project we have going on is $100 and something million, right? So whatever is being proposed for $10 million is a small solution. It's not even a big solution. So that was in Barbados dollars. That was US dollars. I'm speaking US dollars.
It's 5.4 million that they're going to spend here, not yet.
Well, whatever they're spending on it, the point is that in the overall context of coastal infrastructure, it will be a small project, okay? So that's another factor that has to be understood as well. So in the overall context of ongoing long-term protection for your coastline, this should ideally be seen as one of subsequent measures. I'm hearing a sense of finality here, as if you put this in and you've got protection forever. I don't think that that could be intended if those are the numbers that you're speaking about. That is not realistic at all. So I apologize if I've spoken out of turn. I sincerely hope I have not.
You've been waiting for it. Sorry, Mr. Issa, just if you can, or do you want?
So I just wanted to quickly say that I attended one of the first meetings in Negril, and I'm a resident here. I was just curious about what goes on in my community, and there was maybe 8 people there. And from there, us 8 people went door to door, business to business, and no one. I didn't meet anyone, and I did this for like 2 weeks. And people look at me like, who are you? What's this about? There wasn't one business owner in the whole entire West End that knew anything about this. So this wasn't something that the people of Negril are aware of, not only just the residents or the tourists or the visitors. I mean, this just all came about in the last 2 months that people have been aware of what's going on. Or like she said, it wasn't like there was any discussion or a plan or our involvement or anything. It just comes to, this is what they're going to do, and if it was only just of the breakwater, but now you're affecting traffic and people going to work, and I live here. I don't know how I'm going to get to the beach. I'm concerned. You know, I don't know how things are going to play out.
How are we going to get to the grocery store? How are we going to go to the Shell station to get gas? And how do people get moved back and forth?
You know, it's not just putting in the breakwater, it's going to affect the whole town.
For a year.
And then what if the hurricane comes in during all this construction? And there's just a lot of what ifs. Yeah, what if we have a hurricane? What if? I mean, these are not unknown things, but I think there should be more planning and more involvement with the community and the shareholders, and it just all of a sudden was put on us like this is how it's going to be, and I don't see how it's gonna benefit anyone, unless there is like more involvement with the community and the shareholders especially have the biggest investment. And then,
I'm hearing that. I see, hold on, Mr. Issa, we had one hand up where, hold on, Jackie, so if you want to comment and then we'll go one. Sheila, you had your hand up, sir?
No, I just wanted a clarification from Mr. Arthur said, would he suggesting an alternate location for the Breakwater? He was saying, why not? I was trying to understand that part. Why not?
No, I didn't get the question. I didn't hear what you said. Sorry.
Alternative
Location.
location, which will be
I need you to explain to me because for the bar. Yes, we asked in one meeting, we said because what's going to happen in the middle of the town, it's going to be chaos. Nobody can do it. Destruction. Why couldn't they go at the center of the town and put a fire Salt Creek, the other river there? All we're looking at. That meeting I went to, everything you say here will be recorded and will made some get back to you. Who was responsible for that meeting? We haven't heard anything out of that meeting.
That was a focus group meeting. That was a focus group meeting that was conducted by CL Environmental, who was doing the EIA study.
We haven't heard anything back.
It's in the EIA, but there's very little documentation about. They just said that we're disgruntled and not happy about it, but that's about all. I don't know what will come of that.
I think it is important to say that the feedback from those consultations that you had, you mentioned earlier, there will be a meeting on July 2 for you to get all that feedback and also to give your views on what they have done with the feedback that you've already provided. And I would like to ask Dr. Richards to say why was that particular location for the Breakwater?
If it can't work, why not?
Mark? Mr. Arthurs was saying, why did you choose the location that you chose for the
well, we were looking at the North River, the South River, and Sagamar established port. The North River is not, it's not feasible. The amount of work to get that site barge ready and the clearing and impact that would have to be done there is just not feasible. Savanamar, which has a facility, is 35 kilos more than from the South River, and that is another 4 hours on a barge trip if we were thinking about it. So that would escalate project time and project cost significantly. So it isn't feasible to use the others. So we have designed and settled on there. If the town really is not wanted it there, and our rationale for the traffic management and that would be implemented for project implementation. If that cannot be sorted out, then we have to work with someone.
But it doesn't, hold on, I'm going to understand. It doesn't sound like that traffic regulation has been communicated at all, so that I think is another issue.
Well, may I?
Quickly, because it's been...
The traffic in the towns, from the counts that we have and the capacities for the roads that are there, the 24 trucks per day is not significant to
Hello, sorry everybody. I think we are noting some of this because I think we can't put it anywhere this one or this company. So shall we know this one for referral for the follow-up meeting? Hello, I don't think we can address that.
That's 2 or 3 trucks per hour.
Mark,
You know what it's like to go through town now?
Hello, alright, hello. We have very limited
At 6
time.
o'clock at night?
We have to wrap
Any
up.
time of the day, you know where that corner?
We'll not be moving stones at 6 o'clock.
Can we just hold that one? Because we want to solve that one.